Hello and welcome to Inside Leesburg, a weekly magazine show that takes an in-depth look at everything taking place in the lakefront city. Today we're going to give you an inside look at the third annual Wings and Wildflowers Festival that's coming up on October 3rd through the 5th at Leesburg's beautiful Venetian Gardens. Florida's premier event for birding enthusiasts brings together some of the top experts on nature and avian watching, photography, and journalism. 3 days of activities include special presentations with speakers, educational workshops, field trips to local nature spots, flowers and wildlife exhibits, demonstrations, and even a 5K run around Venetian Gardens. Lake County organizes activities each year as a unique opportunity to learn more about this area's natural beauty alongside the best authorities in birds and nature. It highlights Lake County's natural treasures, which attract eco-tourists from around the country. Our guest for today's show will be birding and television personality James Currie, who will be part of this year's event. But joining us first is Debbie Dyer, Lake County's Tourism Program Supervisor. Thanks for joining us, Debbie.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Tell me a little bit more about the activities that we should see at the Wings and Wildflower Festival.
Well, this year it's very special. We've got some new keynote speakers. One of the keynote speakers is Stacy Tornio, and she's with Birds and Blooms. We have new activities scheduled that we haven't had before, is Segway at Emerald Marsh. And the special thing about that is when you're on a Segway, you can see a lot more wildlife than you would in a car. So the people that go on that tour are going to see a lot more wildlife than usual, than you would be.
Well, let's break that down a little bit. You said Bird and Blooms. Is that a magazine publication?
It
or what
is,
is it?
and she's the author of that, and she's going to be a keynote speaker Friday night along with Roger Hammer. And Roger Hammer is a naturalist and a photographer, so that's very exciting.
Wow.
Two keynote speakers Friday night.
Now, when a lot of folks, when they go out nature hiking and stuff, they do a lot of walking and stuff, so the Segway thing ought to be quite a unique experience doing that on a Segway.
Right, and it's very easy to learn. It takes about 5 minutes to learn a Segway ride, to ride one.
Wow. Now, for festival goers, how unique is this opportunity to do this along some of the experts in avian and nature issues? Well,
we cover, if you're just a basic birder all the way to an expert, we cover so many activities that will help you learn about birding and about wildflowers. We have a wildflower garden that an expert will show you how to plant one in your backyard. We have several trips out like to Emerald Marsh, like I'd mentioned before. Flatiron Preserve. We also have one to Pear Park where you'll learn about migration hikes with birds. So
wow.
It's a lot of opportunities, a lot of different, there's over 100 programs that are scheduled for this festival, and we plan it all year long.
Well, I know the purpose is to highlight our wonderful natural resources that we have here in Lake County, but I'm assuming it can be pretty fun and educational as well.
It is. The good thing that we offer mostly too is we have a lot of activities for children, and they'll have fun while they're being educated. And one of them is they're going to be able to plant their own plant as one of the crafts, and take it home with them. It's a make and take. You know, they will go to different classes. You can take your children to classes with you. You can take your parents. It's for all ages, and it's just you're going to learn so many things. Like for instance, we have a beekeeper that's coming, and he will teach you about beekeeping in your own property. You know, James mentioned too before to me that it's good to even start out in your backyard, learning about birds. You know, specify the birds that are in your backyard, and that helps you learn and then move on to something else. But we have so many activities planned that everybody will enjoy this festival.
It seems like you have a lot of activities that hit you on many levels of interest. If you want to just listen, you have some kind of the passive events where people can just listen in on various things, all the way up to very active field trips and such. So you seem to have pretty much a lot of bases covered there.
Yes, we do. We have a lot of mixture. There's one of the trips that we'll go to Lake Apopka Natural Restoration Area, and you'll take a bus out there and you will hike. There's a lot of, we're going to go hiking in the Ocala National Forest, so that'd be for someone that'd be like a little bit more of an avid, you know, hiker versus just a beginning birder or beginning hiker. There's kayaking in Venetian Gardens, so that's kind of like a basic trip that's free, and a lot of our stuff is free this year. We have very few things that cost, which is great for you know if you're on a budget family and want to come have a good time, and there's no cost to also get into the actual festival this year.
Yeah, so the overall admission is free,
and
a lot of the events and activities for the family is just basically kind of walk up and do those type of things. Now, as far as any items that actually do have admission, those are kind of special dinners or various presentations, things like that?
They are, and you can go on to wingsandwildflowers.com to register. One example, you know, is our 5K run. There's a link there that you can go on and register. We have the keynote dinners for Friday night and Saturday night. and wingsandwildflowers.com has all that information for you.
Okay, so the website is the key place to go to reserve a spot and
Correct.
get more information on the different activities and stuff.
Now there is some activities, well there's a lot of activities that are free, but let's just say there's a speaking like in the east or west room at Venetian Gardens in one of the rooms. A lot of times we have enough room and there's no cost. The day of the actual festival and the day of the time of the event, you can actually just walk in and go in. You won't have to register.
Oh, okay.
So we offer that too.
Now I took a look at the website, and I certainly would encourage a lot of folks to go take a look at it
It's
because
beautiful.
it's beautiful and a lot of information. You have 3 days with so much going on. I mean, literally you have to take a look at your itinerary and say, well, I'll hit this and I'll hit that. So it's a great website, but obviously it's something to check out before you go to the event because you might miss something.
It is, and if you want to stay overnight, we have a lot of host hotels that are now involved. The main hotel is Lakeside Inn, of course, and that's where the keynote dinners are Friday night. But we have the Hampton Inn and we have Best Western, and they've partnered with us to offer some comp rooms for some of the keynote speakers and stuff. So it's a really nice thing. The hotels are giving a great price, so I wanted to throw that in too.
Well, it's an extraordinary event with a lot of different activities and also a lot of great experts sharing a lot of great knowledge and information and such. Can you tell me a little bit about, this is the 3rd year for the event. How has it grown since it began?
Well, the first year it was obviously a trial when you have your first year event, and you don't really have everything together, but you try. And there were over 2,000 people the first year. And I was very proud. Someone else ran it besides me at the time, and I ran it last year and this year with my coordinator that works with me too, in the office. And she and she's planned the field trips, and we've noticed that giving new things each year, providing new and different things, is really the key to this. People want to see something new and different every time. For instance, we did have the butterfly tent last year. This year, it's totally free to bring your kids to go through.
Wow.
What if you might want to buy a kayak, but you want to try one out first? You go and you have the free kayaking trip. So we want to get new things out. We want to have something new that every year they want to come to our festival, even for the 3 days, and stay the nights in the hotels and say, look, this is my thing. It's ecotourism. This is what I want to do.
Yeah, exactly. When I was mentioning about the itinerary of picking what you might want to do, you can literally make a full day of this and come back the next day and see something completely new.
Right.
So it's not repeating a lot of stuff. There's new stuff each day. So you actually might want to stay the night and come the next day for that.
Absolutely. And a lot of times I've had people register and they're like, oh no, I'm going to miss this, so I better go back in and re-register this. And we help them, we help them. They can call us and we can walk them through it as far as registering.
Now, a lot of the activities happening around Lake County, you kind of have things spread out in different areas and stuff, but as far as the key or the core area of the event, you moved this year. You actually were down in Hickory Point in some areas. You're moving over to Leesburg this year. Does that provide you any opportunities, or is it just a different venue for you guys to have the event? Or?
We're very lucky. We're very blessed. The city of Leesburg is sponsoring, partnering that with us. No cost to us to be at that Venetian Gardens place, and we also have classrooms that are air conditioned. That's a huge plus because I know it's October when the festival is, but the last year we had the festival at Hickory Point, and there were some issues with some things like the air conditioning and the glare in the classrooms and stuff. So we're really excited this year because a lot of times too, like if you're a photographer, you need to keep your cameras inside, not get those with the weather and everything. So that works. But
it's a little bit different setting. Hickory Point's a very beautiful area too on the waterfront, and it's actually on Lake Harris with Venetian Gardens, but still a very beautiful ornate area. So if you're into birding and flowers and such, both would work out very well for you on
They
that.
would, and I want to throw in this too. Venetian Gardens is beautiful. We love Leesburg, but another thing we're trying to do is promote all of Leesburg. It's not just Venetian, it's not just Leesburg, and it's Lake County too.
Absolutely.
We pride ourselves, we're blessed with the ecotourism here and the beauty of it, but a lot of things we have going on, like the plein air artists that are downtown, the Leesburg Center for the Arts is partnering with us, and she's going to have a whole display on her in her window area, and you can actually register on computers to be in part of the festival and everything too at her place.
Now, a lot of us locals are kind of accustomed to being surrounded by nature. Each day we wake up and we go to work, we go to school, and we see nature all around us, so we're kind of accustomed to it. How big is ecotourism as far as drawing visitors to the area? We know how beautiful Lake County is and our great natural resources, and we know that a lot of visitors come here because we're in Central Florida. But can you tell me a little bit about how ecotourism helps to draw visitors in?
Absolutely, we're very blessed. I'm very proud of Lake County. I don't think people really realize what we have, and you don't know what you have until you're here, and the festival brings a lot of that out because you've got the water stuff that we're doing, you've got the hikes, you've got the birding, you've got the wildflowers. It's so gorgeous you can't find it in any other county. I just don't believe you can, and we're very blessed because of the lakes. We've got over 1,000 lakes. It's ecotourism. It just sums it up. it's beautiful.
Now, when you're talking about traditional versions of tourism and what draws people to an area, do you think that birding and wildflowers and nature is somewhat underestimated about the popularity of this? Because as I was doing my research, I was noticing this is wildly popular. Do you think some folks might underestimate just how popular this is?
I believe they will. If they're an avid birder, they can find us and they know, because people will get on Google and they'll do their Google about where the best birding places are. And we have many gorgeous locations for birding. We have over 200 birds in Lake County that are they're local, and people look for them. People have bird lists. They go by. It's kind of like a bucket list. It's a life list. And what they do is they check the bird list. They check their bird list and they check to see which ones they've seen in the areas. And it is like a bucket list or a life list for you if you're an avid birder. But like I said before, all the avid birders know where we are located. It's the basic birders that don't know if they want to bird or they might want to start birding that might not know where we're located. And that's what we're trying to do, is reach out. We have done a lot of advertising this year in magazines and online, websites. We've gotten very involved with TV, radio, everything, and we feel that's going to push the people to know what's going on and push the word out.
So aside from the natural resources and the wildlife that we have in this area that obviously make it ideal for an event like this, the event, with the organization, the activities and stuff, is it pretty prominent within the state as one of the bigger events for this type of activity?
Well, actually, I'd like to compare it to Space Coast Birding. They've been around a lot longer and they've had a lot more years they've been involved with this, but we kind of pick up each other's little twerks that we do, little things to try to make our festival better. And it's unique. I mean, I don't know of any other county that has the festival that offers all the ecotourism that we do. We could take you probably for like a fam tour for 3 days and you still wouldn't see it all.
Yeah, and even for folks who know a lot about birding and wildflowers and nature and stuff, it's a great opportunity to bring in the experts that you have, experts in the field of photography and writing and everything, to be able to go alongside them and share with them. And I think that is a very unique aspect that no matter how much you know, this could actually open your eyes to whole new things because you're bringing in experts in the field.
That's correct. We have some field experts that have been with the festival for quite a few years now, well, the third year. And it's just amazing because you go and you're just in awe of the things that they can tell you that you can do that are just to get you started in whatever you want to be in as far as the wildflowers. Or, even we have Gallus Quigley, and he's with the Lake County Parks and Recreation Department. And he is like a birder like on steroids.
Really?
What he does is he has the eBird on his phone, and he takes out all kinds of different people and different events all just every day, every week, all throughout the parks and everything to show them the beauty and the birds. So he keeps track of that.
Debbie, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, when we come back after the break, we'll have more with the Wings and Wildflower Festival and special guest, birding expert James Currie. Welcome back to Inside Leesburg. We're taking a look today at Lake County's upcoming Wings and Wildflowers Festival, taking place right here at Leesburg's beautiful Venetian Gardens on October 3rd through the 5th. One of the experts who's been heavily involved with this event is James Currie, a popular bird photographer and host of the nationally televised shows Nikon's Birding Adventures on the Discovery Channel Destination America and Aerial Assassins on National Geographic Channel. The South African native, who lives in Lake Worth, Florida, has been involved in nature efforts for most of his life. He's worked extensively as a guide and nature advocate in Africa. James's particular interest in bird watching and photography follows back to when he was only 7 years old. And today he is widely known for advocating birding as an active and educational lifestyle that isn't reserved for scientists and bookworms. Joining us now is James Currie. James, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Great to be here, Rob.
Okay. Let's start a little bit about your television shows. Could you first start off with Nikon's Birding Adventures? Tell us a little bit about what that's about.
Sure. Well, we're going into season 7, actually, coming up and on Discovery Channel's Destination America. And Nikon's Birding Adventures is really a travel show with a difference. We travel around the world and try to show our audience the amazing birds that can be found around the world. But it's not just about birds, it's also about the cultures that we come across, it's about the food that we come across, it's about the experiences that we have in these amazing places around the world. But birds are the kind of the calling card that get us there. So it's a great show. It is weekly on Destination America.
Okay, but your other show that you have a couple shows actually, I understand, on the National Geographic Channel. Could you tell us about Aerial Assassins? What's that?
Sure. Aerial Assassins was a 1-hour production that we did for National Geographic, and it really followed the lives of a group of Harris's hawks in the Sonoran Desert in Arizona. And Harris hawks are incredible raptors. They're birds of prey, but they're unique amongst the birds of prey because they hunt cooperatively, almost like a group of lions or a pack of wolves. They actually all get together and have these unique different strategies of being able to get their prey. So our objective there was to spend a few weeks in the Sonoran Desert and try to witness this pack hunt behavior in the wild and capture it on film.
Wow. And you have another show with that channel?
Yeah, we also did another interesting spoof on bird watching, actually on National Geographic. It's called Twitches. And this was really almost like a reality comedy show about bird watching, which is quite funny. It's amazing how you can make birding funny. But yes, it was a good show.
And even though these shows are premiering on those national networks, there's other avenues by which you might be able to see them soon, maybe online, or is there another?
Sure, you can watch all of our shows, Nikon's Birding Adventures, online. You can get them on our website, it's birdingadventures.com, or on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/birdingadventures.
Excellent. It's a great way to catch your shows, and very entertaining. It sounds like there are a lot of great topics. Now, you're not just subjected to television. You have a book coming out?
Yes, we have a book coming out probably in about a month's time. It's called When Eagles Roar, and it's really about my life as a game ranger and bird watcher in Africa. And it features some amazing adventures, getting charged by lions while looking for birds and such. And it also features a lot of amazing other wildlife. So it features the big five, the perils that a lot of the wildlife are facing in Africa today. And it also features the devastating effect that AIDS is having on Africa's populations, because it also impacts the wildlife in a very unique way through AIDS.
Now, with that, when you talk about AIDS, you're talking about the humanitarian population. You would make the distinction that there is interaction with that one affects the other, that you have wildlife and nature, but you also have people that live there and the society around them and stuff. You make that distinction of looking at both sides.
Absolutely. You know, the main thing about conservation in Africa, Rob, and indeed conservation around the world, is that it really needs to include people. The days of setting aside these separate wildlife and wilderness areas for the enjoyment of the rich are gone. What we really need to do is we need to have these wildlife areas that really give direct benefits to the local communities around those areas, because in that way they'll get to really respect the wildlife, they'll get to respect the environment, and they'll get to know that this is an important resource which is benefiting them directly. So it's very, very important. And what AIDS has done in Africa is it's taken some of the brightest local community minds who have been really involved in the conservation process in Africa. And unfortunately, a lot of those really, really bright minds are now gone forever.
James, with that book, I understand that it's going to be available very soon, and one of the first opportunities the public will be able to see it is at the upcoming Wings and Wildflower Festival. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. We'll be doing a book signing. I'll also be doing a talk on some of my adventures in Africa. And so you can come along. I believe it's at 1:45 on Friday. And you can come listen to the talk, and then we'll also be doing a book signing after that. And also, if you'd like to pre-order a copy of the book, you can do that at wheneaglesroar.com.
You might be able to assume you're from South Africa, and the extensive amount of studying that you have done, that you obviously have a deep passion and a love for nature. But what is it about nature and birds that interests you most? Why birds?
Well, I think birds are just so unique because try as we might, we can't fly. We really cannot. We can go in aeroplanes and stuff, and we can go on hang gliders, but to get the true perspective of flight, only a bird can really have that. And I think they just have such beautiful colors. There's such diversity in birds. I mean, you look at the difference between an ostrich and a hummingbird, for instance, and you look at how can these birds be so different, and they've all adapted to these various different ways to survive. And I think that for me is the most fascinating thing about birds. It's just the variety. To think that there's over 10,000 species of birds worldwide. So it's my goal to try and see as many of those as I can.
Now, aside from bringing attention to the wildlife and watching wildlife and stuff, how do you tie that into a message of conservation, and how do you incorporate conservation into what you do in bringing attention to this?
I think the most important thing with that, Rob, is that people need to realize that we need to act now if we're to save some of the world's birds. And through our TV show, we like to highlight places in the world and birds that are seriously imperiled, birds that we need to act now really to save them. We did a feature, for example, on a bird called Ridgway's hawk in the Dominican Republic, and there are as few as 100 of these left on the planet.
Wow.
And one hurricane can come through and decimate the entire island, and those birds can be gone forever. So I think it's really important through our show to bring that message across and to say that it's really important to preserve not only birds, but bird habitat as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, wildlife shows and entertainment are fairly common, but when it comes to birding, are you hopeful with your efforts that people will take a look at birding and get interested in birding and maybe look at it in a different way?
Yes, absolutely. For many years there's been this perception of birding as a passive pastime, like bird watching. You're sitting on your porch and you're watching birds come to your bird feeders. But what we're trying to do is we're really trying to change that and flip it on its head and look at birding as an active sport, which really it is. And that's where the fun and the excitement comes into it, because you get away from your doorstep, you get to explore the surrounds of a beautiful place like Lake County, and there's a lot of excitement and there's a lot of endurance involved with it as well. And the great thing about birding is you can take it at your own level. If you want to take it slowly, you can take it slowly. If you want to take it fast and exciting, you can do that too.
Nature has a lot of wonderful examples for us as observers of nature and watching it. Birds, I mean, what have you learned most, or could you share about what can birds show us most about ourselves, or what can we learn most about birds?
I think the most important thing we can learn about birds is that they're just these magnificent creatures that really form a unique part in our world. I mean, we've got mammals, we've got fish, we've got reptiles, but we've only got one lot of birds that cover the skies. I mean, the days way back, you go back 100 years in North America when we had millions and millions of passenger pigeons that would literally cover out the sky, the sun. They would blacken the sky because the flocks were so huge. And today we have no passenger pigeons left. They're extinct in North America. And it's amazing to think that North America's most numerous bird is now gone.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really a shame that we've done so much damage to birds. Mm-hmm. And I think that we really need to learn to protect them for future generations.
I want to take a step back, because obviously you've worked extensively in this field and you're an expert in this. When you started in school and education and stuff, your original degree was in languages. You actually speak some native languages. Like, what do you speak?
Well, I speak Afrikaans, which is almost like a dumbed-down version of Dutch. It's like kitchen Dutch.
Really?
And so Afrikaans is one. I also speak Zulu, which is an African language, and Xhosa, which is another African language spoken in the south of South Africa.
Wow. Now, you also went and get a higher degree in environmental management. How did that help shape your understanding of nature today?
Well, I did a master's degree in environmental management, a science degree, and what it really gave me was a great perspective on policy making. So what policies we can do to really affect the environment, both at the local level and at the national level, and indeed at the international level, because you needed to work on all those levels for it really to work well. And I think the other thing it really gave me was I really focused on the effects of tourism on conservation. So I focused on the links between tourism and conservation. I think that gave me a great perspective on the work that I do now, how important it is for tourism to benefit local communities, but also to benefit conservation, and the conservation to benefit the tourism. It's like an African three-legged pot. Mm-hmm. You've got to have all three legs of that pot for it to work. If one leg's gone, that pot's going to fall over.
Mm-hmm. Now, you obviously got into humanitarian and nature conservation efforts with the Africa Foundation. Could you tell me a little bit about the involvement with that during the time you were there?
Sure. Africa Foundation is a non-profit organization that really is focused on uplifting the lives of communities around Africa's wildlife areas. It operates in 6 different African countries, which is South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Tanzania, Kenya, and basically in those countries you've got these wildlife areas, but you've got communities that have historically not benefited from those wildlife areas. So what Africa Foundation does is it focuses on education, healthcare, and income generation that are provided through the guests that visit these areas. So those funds are then transferred into the local communities, and the communities identify the needs which they need in those 3 areas. So it might be clinics, it might be AIDS research, it might be classrooms, schools, it might be small business development, bursaries, that kind of stuff.
Once again, tying in wildlife with humanitarian efforts and seeing that balance between the two over there. I have to ask, what brought you to Florida?
Well, my wife is a Florida native. She was born in Hollywood, Florida, down near Fort Lauderdale. And so she spent 6 years with me in South Africa. And we have 3 beautiful kids that were born in South Africa. And then, of course, her being from the States, I've now decided to give the States a go. And I'm really loving it, loving Florida.
Wow. We've obviously talked about your television and writing, but you also have speaking engagements. How much traveling do you do between all these different activities?
It's a lot of travel. I remember counting one year that I had traveled, this was right in the early days, thank goodness I don't travel that much, but it was like 150 days of the year, which was a lot of travel. So I've lessened it a lot now, especially with having 3 young kids. But yeah, it's a lot of travel.
Okay, and obviously you've been involved locally with the Wings and Wildflower Festival here in Lake County. Could you give your insight in why are these type of events important? Obviously it's a highlight on ecotourism, it's a highlight on the natural resources that we have in the area, but from your perspective, why is it important to have the public come in and take part in these type of events?
I think the most important aspect of this really is the youth in my book, because I look at my kids today and I look how easy it is for them to get totally glued on electronics, iPads and etc., and really get stuck into games and that kind of stuff. And I think it's so important for us to get kids outdoors these days. And festivals like the Wings and Wildflowers Festival are really a unique way in which a family can come out, expose their kids to nature, and hopefully ignite that spark that I had when I was 7 or 8 years old, and you can really make a lifelong profession out of being out in the outdoors.
And it really doesn't take much to get hooked. It's just a matter of getting out there and trying to maybe share some of the experiences that you experts are providing in these type of events. It is pretty easy for folks to get into this type of thing?
Very easy. I always say to people, if you want to get into bird watching, indeed any kind of wildlife watching, contact your local Audubon chapter. Nearly every city in North America has got a local bird club. Go contact them. They offer free field trips most of the time on weekends where you can go out with experts and they'll teach you how to go out there and do some bird watching.
Good deal. Thanks very much for joining us. Do appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks, Rob.
Well, that's about all the time we have left. Until next time, get out and explore all the great things we have here in Leesburg.